It's Senior Bowl week. We finally made it, the inaugural start of the NFL draft process, and basically the first chance NFL scouts, coaches, and draftniks like you and I, we get to observe the new class of prospects as they begin the next step in their professional careers. So, hello everyone. We're back with another episode of Draft Dynamite. My name is Cole Topham alongside Theo Ash. Daniel Alameda couldn't make it today, so it's just going to be us two, dangerous duo. We're finally back in our Zoom studio talking scouting and tape evaluation. And Theo, it's good to be back, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. Good to have good to have some stuff to talk about with the Senior Bowl, and had a lot of time to scout some guys and the championship game. And yeah, it's definitely good to get back and really start to ramp things up. As you know, Stafford rumors looks like some trades are going to go down, and
John
people
Watson clearing his entire
watching.
social media this morning.
Yeah, oh right, that's right. So definitely a lot of stuff to talk about and keep an eye on as things start to ramp up as the season winds down.
I mean, it's definitely been a very full week. The Senior Bowl practices, one-on-one reps, they've been going on all week, but uh, it's just sort of been stealing like the thunder is our TikTok for you pages and the stocks, man. Like GameStop is stealing the Senior Bowl shine.
I know.
And I was just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, my thoughts on the stock market. My thoughts on the stock market are that, like, I mean, it's a meme, right? And it's probably going to die in the next like 3 days, I would assume. And I don't think a lot of people understand that, like, if everyone buys stocks, like, and you're planning to all sell them at a like in a mass sell-off, like, not everyone can profit off of that. And I see a lot of like comment sections that are like, everyone buy it and hold it, we'll all be rich. It's like, you realize like only half of you will be rich, because like even if everyone like coordinates when they're gonna sell, like the last people there are just gonna like lose a ton of money. So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of coming out of like a fundamental like misunderstanding of how stocks work, but it's fun to see. It's been interesting to keep track of.
Yeah, it seems like everyone became an expert in the stock market overnight. But one tweet I saw was actually from the No Man's Sky game developer. He said, in my 3 days of trading stocks, I have never seen anything like this.
Yeah, it's pretty.
But I mean, to like relate that back to scouting, it seems like now this is the time of year that everyone, they start to get excited about the upcoming rookie class, maybe getting into their Devy, their dynasty drafts, trying to get a leg up on the competition. And I like this is where we are, where we try and provide a point of experience from uh, our tape evaluation, everything, and it really starts from this week, the Senior Bowl, the very first week. And I think it's only fitting because you and I, we both go to Arizona State, and Frank Darby decided he wasn't going to exercise that extra year of eligibility he got from COVID. He was going to go into the NFL draft and potentially become the next first round pick, following in the footsteps of Brandon Ayuk and N'Keal Harry. Um, and obviously the Senior Bowl, it was very, very influential for Ayuk last year because the director, Jim Nagy, he publicly declared in a press conference that Ayuk would be a first round pick that April. And he was right. He said, I haven't met a team that doesn't have Brandon Ayuk graded above N'Keal Harry from last year. And unfortunately for Ayuk, he couldn't compete in the game because he was medically flagged for an issue, which I guess he hadn't actually recovered from. And I think he said he was like a week away from competing. But I mean, his stock only continued to rise after that, and it was cemented with a solid performance at the NFL Combine. But Darby this year, he won't get a true combine experience because the NFL scrapped all in-person workouts due to COVID. But he is at the Senior Bowl right now. He's getting his one-on-one reps with the DBs. And so my question for you, Theo, is like how necessary and how influential is the Senior Bowl to Frank Darby's draft stock?
It's incredibly essential to Frank Darby's draft stock, because Darby, with ASU, had such a weird season with only 4 games, and Darby, and with the incoming freshman talent, Darby kind of got pushed out a little bit. And so if you look at his body of work in 2020, I mean, it's nothing special and it'll be incredibly easy to overlook him. But, last season, I didn't really notice a discernible difference between Darby and Ayuk. I thought that I honestly preferred Darby a little bit, and it kind of surprised me when Ayuk was getting first round buzz because I kind of viewed Darby as that guy. And it was cool to see him winning at the Senior Bowl in the exact same way that he was winning at ASU with the release off the line, those go routes, especially up the right sideline, of course, with him always on the right and Ayuk on the left. And doing stuff that I know that he's capable of doing, which a lot of people who are, looking at 2020 results, may not really pick up on. And to see Darby come out there at the Senior Bowl and win in the same ways that he was winning in 2019 is incredibly important for him because he really doesn't have any 2020 tape to really fall back on. So it's tough to make it. The Senior Bowl is obviously just a practice, and you don't want to have someone that you had as a fifth rounder, just shoot up your board a crazy high amount because of a practice. But in Darby's case, I do think that that is a worthy thing to do because I don't think Darby is getting viewed as a very high round pick at all, or a very high round prospect at all. But I feel like if he does well at the combine or this pro day or whatever they're going to call the workouts this offseason, plus the Senior Bowl, he can rise a significant amount.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely have my doubts about Darby being a first round pick. Like you
Right.
said, mostly just due to the meager sample size
He's
in
not
2020.
pick.
Yeah, no, I don't think so either. And I think he left game one against USC with an injury, and then he had a couple touchdowns sprinkled here and there through the remainder of ASU schedule, but there weren't any reps that made you go whoa, that's a top round prospect. But I think what you said about all these practices being scrutinized is because we are in that pandemic evaluation process, and especially with the news coming that there's going to be no combine workouts, every one-on-one rep is going to be scrutinized that much more, and some people are overreact on Twitter, and some people take it with a grain of salt. But at the end of the day, these Senior Bowl one-on-one reps, that's another opportunity for these prospects to showcase their talents. And in an era and an age where that sample size is so small that evaluators and scouts are going to take what the prospects are going to give them. And if it's those Senior Bowl reps, then maybe that'll provide a step up in their evaluation process. So
Sure.
Definitely very, very interesting. I mean, from the other reps that I've seen, I've liked Cade Johnson out of South Dakota State. I think his prospects are going to rise, and he'll gain some interviews with some coaches and some teams as well. Somebody that I hadn't even really looked to really delve into before those Senior Bowl reps, but I was also impressed. And Benjamin St. Juice out of Minnesota, I think he has done very well, especially on day 3.
Right.
Did anyone from the Senior Bowl catch your eye so far?
I can't quite quit Mac Jones. Mac Jones is there's kind of remains to be seen how much quarterback, especially kind of reps, matter at the Super Bowl. But Mac Jones is a guy that keeps impressing me, and every time I watch his tape, I find myself wondering where the bad plays are. And at the Senior Bowl, he came and was pretty pinpoint, as he has been, all year. And, I don't think that he's some franchise changing quarterback, but the more and more I watch from him, the more I think he's going to be a solid starter on an NFL team and something that can stabilize the quarterback position for any franchise who doesn't have one. And he's someone who I think had a good Senior Bowl showing. Kadarius Toney was another guy who put on some filthy routes and couldn't catch he could catch the ball, but there was one kind of clip that was circulating where he just put a filthy route on someone and dropped it. And that kind of goes with his strengths and weaknesses that were kind of cemented in my mind, that he's a high level route runner. with who can't really catch with his hands and has to catch with his body. So, but man, you see, hands can be fixed with the jug machines if you've got that speed and route running ability that he showcased. He's someone that I think should be a lock for the first round. I don't know if he will go there, but he's someone that I would certainly take in the first round. So those were two guys that, you know, I was a little higher on going into the Senior Bowl, but they kind of confirmed my priors a little bit, and it's always good when that happens.
Yeah, I mean, when I was watching Kadarius's Tony tape, it was honestly like a blast to watch. I mean, it was just I think you made a video on it, and I did as well. There was like one play against South Carolina, I think, where he splits 5 defenders. He just
Yeah,
like bounces off them, like bowling
ridiculous.
pins. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
his contact balance is amazing. The speed is there. He's shifty off the line. Like I
yeah.
think Kadarius Toney is going to be more
And
than a
he's
gadget player
relatively
at the
new to
next
the
level.
position too, and he's laying down some filthy routes. And like with NFL development in that area, man, he could be really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his route tree can be expanded. And I think that's what Florida really prioritized, this season because honestly, he wasn't really much more than that, one trick pony with the jet sweeps, and the short pass game, but in his junior year. But this year, especially, it's just been a major step up in his game as well. But one prospect that I have been keeping an eye on is Oklahoma State running back Chuba Hubbard. And I'm just trying to figure out where he fits into the NFL because there's plays he's not like he's got like sprinter speed and he's evasive, but he doesn't really create a lot of plays like out of his own doing, if that makes sense. Like he's not someone like Alvin Kamara that can juke his way, out of a tricky situation. That's just not Chuba. And I'm trying to wonder if that straight line speed will translate to the NFL. I don't know if you've scouted Chuba at all or any of the other running backs in this class, but it's interesting, trying to see what translates to this modern, fast paced, up tempo NFL.
Yeah, I running backs are pretty low on my priority lists. I think the ones that go to the best offensive lines are the ones who are going to end up being the best prospects. And when it comes to guy,
I forget that you're a running back nihilist.
no, but when it comes to, I haven't really scouted him, but when it comes to guys who are more like one cut straight line speed guys, that's especially something where you want to have a good offensive line where they can hit an open hole and then just keep going straight. But you know they're a running back. They're all about the same. I always prefer guys who can break tackles, and that's where they really set themselves apart. Is guys who can create bouncing off tackles. So that's a skill set. If I am looking at a running back, that's the skill set that I value the heaviest is guys who are tackle breakers more than one cut straight line speed guys. But like Chubb is a tackle breaker. Henry is a tackle breaker. Kamara is a tackle breaker. All the best guys are. You don't see a lot of Chris Johnsons in the league right now. And when
Do
you
you
do,
see yourself scouting a running back from this class?
I'll scout. I'll scout some of the running backs from this class, but I'm not gonna really talk about them too much.
Scout Najee Harris.
It all comes if whatever running back from this class gets shot for like a workhorse role and isn't in a committee back, those are the ones who are going to end up being the best ones. Like it all comes down to opportunity for them in the offensive line that they're running behind for me.
Fair enough.
Like yeah, like whoever
No,
the
no, no.
Bills draft, whoever the Bills draft is going to be like the best one from the class because they don't really have, or like the Jets. If the Jets draft a running back, that's going to be the best running back from the class because he's going to split time with no one. And like it doesn't matter who the running back is if they go to a team where they're going to split carries like AJ Dillon to the Packers. I mean, it depends on what they do with Jones, obviously. It just kind of depends. Any running back who is going to get carries, it is going to be a reflection of their offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, especially if the Jets opt to go for another O-line, right, in the draft and get Sewell to combine it with Becton as well, definitely improve that front a lot. But I mean, if we're going to transition into our actual evaluation portion of the episode, I mean, you mentioned Mac Jones earlier, and I was about to say it's I think it's very hard to be critical of Mac Jones when he has such a plethora of talent to throw to, right? And one of those targets was DeVonta Smith, obviously the 2020 Heisman winner. But you've scouted DeVonta Smith. Obviously, we had to do it for this episode, and I mean, I think words that come to mind, at least for me, are smooth, gliding,
Right.
just effortless, seamless. Did some of those words make it into your scouting report as
Oh
well?
yeah, for sure. He's just built like a deer. Like he's got these
That's what
long
I
legs,
said. I said he looks like a gazelle.
gazelle deer, like these long, smooth strides. Just nothing about him is looks forced ever. And the brighter the lights get as the playoffs went on in these big games, he steps up and he doesn't disappear ever. And it's he is so thin, and that's his can also be kind of a down. His one downside is his size, but despite his size, I mean, it's everything he does is just has no weight to it at all. Like he really does look weightless out there, making explosive cuts. Just the speed, the hands, everything. He except for maybe injury concerns, there really is not a ton of downside to him at all.
Yeah, I mean, if we're just gonna list off the weaknesses right off the bat, I'd say, I mean, you already pointed out his size. He's still only like 175 pounds. He was
Right.
151 coming into Bama. So obviously, obviously he's put on a little bit of weight since then, but not much. But I think it's important to note that, uh, you know, he's never going to be that receiver that wins just based off of raw power or
Right.
bulk or because he manhandles opponents, right? It's because it's his craftiness at the line, just the way he can manipulate defenders, just using the slightest movements in his upper body. That's what DeVonta Smith shines at. But I think another weakness of DeVonta Smith is playing through contact as well, because
Right.
he does
He's
have
not
that
going to be
smaller
anyone who
frame.
breaks tackles.
Right, and interesting enough, in the tape that I watched, it seemed like defenders would press him, but they wouldn't necessarily engage him, which was kind of odd because I feel like with a receiver that is pretty nuanced in the route running and that wins, off their release pretty consistently, and obviously, someone that can have a home run play, every other play, as evidenced by his 46 touchdowns. I just felt like people or defensive backs would engage him at the line more and get their hands on him, but they
Yeah.
really didn't. And I was
You
just
move
wondering
him
if
off
that was
the
the
spot.
style of the
Yeah,
SEC.
there was one play versus Missouri where he literally got ran out of the frame, like literally out of bounds into the Missouri sideline by a freshman corner who just like put his shoulder on him and just forced him out of bounds. And
I
that,
think I remember that actually.
yeah, and that was one play where it kind of raises some alarm bells that they were able to do that. But again, that's not something that was that was kind of a one-time thing, and that wasn't something that even powerhouse schools could, like, their corners were able to do. Sean Wade certainly wasn't able to do it, and he's going to be or at least I don't know if that changed, but like going into that game, he was regarded as a first, second round pick. So he's not infallible, but there are some concerns playing at that weight that he could get pushed around. But again, you just didn't see it in college at all. So it's like, are these concerns well founded? Because I'm sure like a college team, if they noticed that to be, or felt that that was a possibility, they would say to do it. Like if it was a possible thing to just like stonewall him at the line and be physical and get his hands on him and screw him up like that, you would have to think that a college team would like that thought would enter their mind and they'd try to do it. So like, yes, injuries are a concern, and yes, like his physicality is a little bit of a concern, but like it should have been a concern in college, and it really didn't hinder him at all. So it's tough to really knock him down for it, even though it might be something that comes up as a problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's just like there's so many positives, and if we're willing to overlook the frame, it obviously didn't hinder him in college, and it wasn't exploited by defenses, so we can really only focus on the positives. And there's a lot of positives, right? He's a two-time national champion, Heisman Trophy that we mentioned earlier, 46 touchdowns, just an abundance of accolades, stats, nuanced route running, everything that you would. He's a very complete NFL prospect aside from having the frame of an NFL caliber wide receiver. I think
And
the
there are
average.
guys who are very close to his frame. They're not quite as thin as him,
Right.
but Robbie Anderson is kind of my comp for him. Calvin Ridley is a little bit similar, coming out of the same school. So it's not, those guys are like a little bit heavier than him, but not in a really significant way. It's not like it's absolutely unprecedented to see a thin guy like succeeding in the NFL. So I think Robbie Anderson is his comp right away, and he has a. I mean, Anderson's good, but he's not, a top 10 wide receiver. Although I do think that he was for a little bit earlier this year, and Teddy Bridgewater's not a great quarterback. So maybe Robbie Anderson even could be a top 10 wide receiver with someone without Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater throwing to him. So that's kind of my comp for him. I don't know if you have one.
Yeah, no, I don't try and force comps on the players. Not to say that your comp was forced, but uh, if I see a player and NFL talent immediately comes to mind watching that player, then sure I'll throw in a player comp. But I've sort of shied away from trying to find a player comparison for every single prospect because one, it gets exhausting to assign a comp year after year, right? And when you have previous prospects that you've assigned that comp and you're comparing those prospects together as well, and you realize that they don't match up, then there's like some inconsistencies in your work. So I don't usually do comps. And a comp really didn't stand out for DeVonta Smith. I kind of feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
he's in his own little tier.
yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
But I mean, here one question that I had for you, Theo, is I don't know how much scouting you did of last year's class, but I was wondering between CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Justin Jefferson, the pre-draft evaluation, throwing Jalen Reagor there as well. Where does Smith rank for you among this receivers class and last year's receivers class?
I was a big Jerry Jeudy fan last year. I thought Jeudy was going to be awesome, and I still kind of, even though he can't catch a football, I still think that that's something that he can learn. My comp coming out of school for him was Devontae Adams, and Devontae also was. I wanted him cut like early in his career. He could not catch
So
anything.
did I. I had him on
Yeah,
my fantasy team. He had Butterfingers
he
like
had,
his
he had,
sophomore
but
year
he
when he was
could
supposed
not
to
catch
fill in for
anything.
Jordy
And
Nelson.
it was a great. Now, honestly, Jeudy is a better route runner than Devontae was at this stage in his career. So I still have hope for Jerry Jeudy the same way that I learning my lessons from Devontae. I was a big Jeudy fan. I hated Ruggs. Um, I liked Lamb. And Devontae, I don't know if I would say. I think Devontae and Jeudy were similar to me in that they both looked really smooth as route runners. Jeudy, I don't recall had major drop issues coming out of school, um, so I wasn't too concerned with Jeudy's hands. So I would say that Smith ranks maybe, and there's also Jamar Chase from this year if you want to throw in like combining prospects from these 2 years, but.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that I like Jeudy more than I like Smith coming out of school, like not factoring in what I know now about Jeudy.
Right.
But I would definitely feel comfortable taking Smith in like that. Probably I wouldn't take him at 2. Like I've seen some people thinking like the Jets might take him at 2. I wouldn't quite do that. But like if I was the Dolphins at 4, I would consider Smith pretty heavily just because they need someone who's not just a contested catch artist and a solid route runner. But I would say I had of the combined like last 2 classes, I would say that Jeudy is the one that I've held in the highest regard. And then maybe Smith after that. I've got some questions about Jamar Chase's route running and his overall separation ability.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I kind of go back and forth between if I like Chase or Smith more because I have questions about Smith's frame, and they're both very good but not perfect prospects. And I kind of thought Judy was like a perfect wide receiver prospect, but apparently not.
Hey, I mean, everyone has their rookie yips, right? I mean, he's still ranked like what in the top, I want to say top 30 for receiving yards. That sounds wrong, but I still think Judy had a really solid season. There were flashes of that,
Right.
insane fluid route running that he had in college. There's like one route against, I think was it Kendall Sheffield or
I
no?
can't remember. There was the one where he threw up his hand and then
Yeah, against the
pulled
Falcons
it.
cornerback.
Yes, it was against the Falcons. He threw up his hand to sell the fade and then stopped it. That was filthy. He
Yeah,
ran some dirty routes against the Panthers. Of course,
Panthers. Yep,
he mossed that guy versus the Jets. I
Rasul Douglas. Yeah,
yeah, I still have a lot of hope for Judy in the same way that I did Andrews. And obviously, he also got a lot of bad throws from Locke, but he also had some good throws from Locke that he really didn't reward, and just couldn't seem to bring in any tough catches except for the Jets one. So, but anyway, that's I'm on a Judy tangent now. But DeVonta Smith, I would say, definitely ranks in either the top 2 or 3, at least the top 4 of the last, because it was a stacked wide receiver class this year and last year and this year with Chase. But he's someone that I would consider top 10 at the end of the day, or that I would consider worthy of a top 10 pick at the end of the day.
yeah, for sure. No, I think I would say the same. I mean, we're kind of running out of time here, but I do want to get to the next evaluation process. We got to make this quick. We got to go. We got to go fast.
Okay,
But Justin Fields,
so
I
I should.
know, I know, Theo, that you have some flaming Justin Fields takes that you have been flamed for online. So please go ahead.
Yeah.
What
My
is the
thing with
Justin
Justin
Fields take?
Fields is I don't think that he's particularly awesome at anything. He still might be the second best quarterback in this class behind Lawrence, despite that, because I mean, I'm a Lance guy. I think he's QB2, but of Lance and Wilson and Fields, they all are similarly, talented and flawed in kind of similar ways. But the thing about Fields is that I called him a vessel to get the ball to the first read. And normally he had that slow drop back and like that one step drop back, get the ball out, one step drop back, get the ball out, one step drop back, get the ball out. And when he faced pressure, he was the worst of all the elite quarterbacks from this draft class, all the top tier prospects. He was the worst when he was facing like had pressure in his face, at least this season. So I have my doubts about Fields. However, I think Atlanta would be an awesome fit for him because I think Tannehill, also is kind of a guy who gets focused on his number one read, and Arthur Smith made him look awesome, you know. So it's very possible for him to get in a system. I feel like that works out his kinks and does take advantage of his arm, which is quite good, and his athleticism. I mean, the raw talent is there, and in the draft, the development of players is often on the coaches, and the GMs are trying to get them the hunks of clay to work with. And he definitely is a very tantalizing hunk of clay to work with because he does have a lot of physical gifts. He just needs to work on, his release is a little bit slow. His windup is a little bit long. He can be a little bit late to pull the trigger on things. He can get locked on his first read. So he needs work, but there is talent there to work with. And I recognize the possibility that, me being harsh on Fields blows up in my face.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because uh, I feel like the draft community, minus the diehard Ohio State fans, but the draft community is pretty consistent in their evaluation about Fields. Like everyone, they recognize the mobility, the athleticism, the arm strength. He can gun it over long distances. He has a surging throwing motion that uses his entire body and not just, his throwing limb. He has good touch and ball placement. His accuracy improved over his 3 years in college. And I thought he was pretty good throwing on the run as well. But like you said, those weaknesses, the up-tempo offense that prioritizes the short yardage situations and getting the ball out of his hands as fast as possible, that tunnel visioning on his first read, And then just his footwork becoming less active, and his lower body, it almost like lopes
Yeah,
in quick pass situations. Like the footwork is definitely leaves much to be desired when
right.
he is just trying to get the
He
ball out
sacks
as fast as
himself
possible.
sometimes. There's a lot wrong with him, and I don't know. There's a since the scouting community all kind of recognizes this. It wouldn't obviously NFL teams have seen this too, and it wouldn't surprise me if he kind of has a surprising drop on draft night because of that. Because everyone kind of seems kind of collectively not collect. Obviously, there are guys who are high on him, but like a lot of people are collectively down on him, and I wonder if he's going to kind of see a slide on draft night that maybe the more casual like observer of Fields might not see coming, especially after that Clemson game. Which in the Clemson game, he saw a lot of blown coverages was one thing. Like that game
Hmm.
was awesome by him, but that pick that he threw in that game was awful.
Oh
Like
yeah, yeah. He stared his receiver down the entire way, and you just see
I,
the Clemson defensive back just read his eyes, like
no, yeah, no, that pick was
totally to the back of the end zone.
he missed some open guys in that game. Like he was good in that game. Don't get me wrong. Like obviously he was really good in that game, but like even that game, there was some stuff like I don't know if this would fly against NFL defenses that are. I mean, some NFL defenses blow coverages all the time, but like the Clemson defense blew a ton of coverages and against Alabama, and I fully expected that to be a pretty big blowout in terms of Alabama winning that game because they're a much more solid defense. And sure enough, Fields had a fine game, but it wasn't anything that special, and they got crushed.
Yeah, and before the semifinal game, those questions about his ability to perform well under pressure, I'd say after that they were brought to a whisper, but like it still remains a concern, and
Yeah,
I still think there's concerns about Fields adjusting to the NFL atmosphere. Obviously, like staring down your first read every single play is not gonna fly
yeah,
in the NFL.
right.
So
You're
that's
getting
something that he needs to become more comfortable going through his progression, and when he gets to his second read, being decisive on that, and not turning to
And
the scramble or the check
he
down.
has to go somewhere where if he goes to like the Lions per se, who are going to trade Stafford, and the Lions will have to take a quarterback in this draft. Like I assume that they're going to trade up and take someone because if they trade Stafford, obviously they're not going to go into the season with with David Blau or who's their journeyman backup. There's a million of them that they're all the same player. I can't remember who it is. They're going to draft a quarterback, and if it's Fields, I really don't love Fields' chance to succeed in Detroit at all, or somewhere where, or the Jets, where he would have to step in and just be a franchise guy right away. That's how bad franchises stay bad is getting rid of a good quarterback in Stafford, throwing in Fields who needs a ton of work with no help, with a coaching staff that I have some questions about right away. He needs to go to a team like Atlanta with Arthur Smith, who's a really good offensive minded head coach, and sit behind Matt Ryan for a little bit. He needs to go somewhere like Carolina with Joe Brady, and he could maybe, Bridgewater could start well if Fields gets ready, and Joe Brady
Bridgewater can be the bridge,
can,
right?
yeah, Bridgewater can be the bridge, and Joe Brady can mask a lot of their problems because he's such a good offensive head coach. Or maybe somewhere like the 49ers. Like he needs to, the situation will matter so much with him because if he gets thrown in a place like the Jets or the Lions and has to start right away, I really don't like his odds of just being awesome or being some sort of high awesome rookie player. So that's those are my thoughts on Fields.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like to sum up a prospect in one word, just because I feel like when you instantly think of a prospect, something should immediately come to mind, and immediately what comes to mind is structured, right? I feel like Fields' time in Ohio State was very structured, and in the fact that just the style of offense that he played in, and the way he went through his progressions, the way he played those games, and I think he's going to have to enjoy a little bit of the same in the NFL in order to find success. He needs a structured, offense behind him, and also just structure in place in order to develop into a quarterback that minimizes those flaws that we discussed, and promotes his cannon of an arm,
Right.
and accuracy traits, athleticism, that sort of deal.
Yeah. If I had a word, it'd be inconsistent. There are times where his accuracy looks pinpoint and times where he's way off. There are plays where he does read the field well, but it's not nearly as much as not even close to where you would like to see it. There are times where the ball flies out of his hands, and there are times where the ball flutters out of his hands. There are times where he looks incredibly invasive in the pocket, and there are times where he walks into sacks. Like, all the traits he shows sometimes, obviously, that's why he's, I don't know if he's still the presumed favorite to be the number 2 pick, but like he's definitely in that conversation. Obviously, he shows all of these traits occasionally, but you watch the tape and you're like, man, these are not things that are showing up as nearly as much as I would like to see. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think the quest to become the number 2 quarterback behind Lawrence is going to end anytime soon between now and April.
Yeah.
But that's going to do it for episode 2 of Draft Dynamite. Theo, where can we follow you on social media?
You can follow me on Twitter at TheoAsh1, and you can follow me on TikTok doing player breakdowns at 16 game sample size.
All right, awesome.
Well, I might have to change that name because it's not 16 games anymore. I might have to change it.
What do you mean it's not 16 games?
It's
16 games, the ones that matter for my fantasy team at least.
It's a 17 game season now. They're changing it. So my name is obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
So
might need a rebrand.
I might need a rebrand. I should probably just change it to my name so people know who I am, but I'll think about it. But as of right now, you can find me at 16 size.
16 game sample size. You can follow me at Ham Analysis. Check us back here next week for more NFL draft content. We're gonna have 2 more prospects to scout, and hopefully something interesting will come through the rumor mill that will shake up the NFL draft process.
Next week, Stafford's traded.
Oh, hot take. Okay. Stafford will be traded next week. I guess we'll open our next episode with that. But peace out for now, guys.